Hello Capricorn, my name's Uma. This is your horoscope for the full moon and Mars conjunction in Gemini. Now, first of all, you have to be kind to me today because I have a Gemini moon placement. Hello Capricorn, welcome back, and thank you for your support. I can feel it already. I can feel you up in and around my vibe. The reason that there is probably some triggering emotions cropping up for me is just that the moon placement in a birth chart can represent our body, our ability to emotionally regulate. And so to have a full moon on this placement anyway can be tricky. To have Mars, the planet of fire, in a direct conjunction with the moon brings about a different level, a different experience of heat, of intensity to those emotions. The good news for you, Capricorn, is that you're in a great place at this lunation to proffer some sort of support, I think, for other folks. And so in that way of being a sign that loves to be of service, I think at this lunation it would bode you really well to remember that you have a level of grounding that can be of use to other folks. So let's think about Gemini and what that represents. Let's think about Gemini in terms of representing the twins of that sense of duality and potentially a difficulty with duality. I would say a difficulty right now because Mars, the planet of fire and activation, sometimes aggression, sometimes impulse, is not at home in Gemini. The element of fire of which it represents, when ping-ponged back and forth in that conversational style of Gemini, can lead to a heightening, an intensity, a boiling point in some way. I think if we zoom out and look at the collective experience, there is so much articulated hate in the world right now that we are faced with on a constant basis. And I think that for folks that feel or have been actively marginalized in their lifetime here, it doesn't feel safe at the moment to be existing amongst so much polarized opinion. The conversation of what is fair, what is right, what is just, what is moral, all of these things seem to be reaching some sort of crescendo point. And I think that realistically, we can look to the time that we're existing in right now and the access to free opinion, that town square of sharing ideas is in our back pocket every day, and to be put to really great use and to really support the lines of communication. Wonderful things can happen, but when things are thrown into the mix, such as political manipulation, as playing on people's intrinsically embedded base fears, this is when polarity starts to exist in the most destructive of ways. This fight for supremacy is something that I'm sure that we're all really hyper aware of at the moment. To look at the constellations, to look at the configurations in the sky can bring us down to earth in some way. We can look at this and go, okay, well, this is something that we need to activate and need to work through and work with. And some are dealing with it in a more constructive, beneficial way than others. I would suggest, Capricorn, that because of your fixity, because of your your stability might be a really great word to describe you at this time. You might not be feeling that, and that's completely, absolutely understandable. But I think if we go back to the archetypes of the zodiac, we go back to that wonderful, grounded conviction of a Capricorn that climbs the mountaintop, that reaches the apex of enlightenment and turns into the unicorn, and then looks down and makes the long, slow journey down to collect everybody else so they can bear witness to what the Capricorn has found. This is something that I really want you to hold on to as an emblem of your soul. If I'm speaking to a Capricorn rising, this is your message, that we need to, at this time, work together actively and take care of those that are vulnerable. Let's have a look at the tarot, and then let's have a look at where this is playing out for you in your chart. The tarot card that is representative of the second decan, the second wedge of Gemini, and also is representative of Mars in Gemini, is the Nine of Swords. And this is an incredibly difficult card to come across in a reading. If you've ever had a tarot reading and this card has shown itself, it does point to the danger of repetitious thought. If we consider the swords as thought and 9 as being too many, and we can see that this figure is up at night, they're racked with some sort of anxiety, some sort of fear, some sort of worry. Perhaps they're lamenting on the past. Perhaps they're terrified of the future. This is an energy that is incredibly difficult, and I can see the imagery of Mars, that urgency in Gemini conversation. When left to this part of our body, just in here, this can be incredibly difficult. And so this is when, in a reading, it would be a responsible thing to suggest active therapy with a professional. I think when we remember that we only read the zodiac, we only read the tarot as a tool of regulation, as a tool to drop ourselves back into this present moment and to realize that in this very second we are safe, and that we've got things to hope for and things to look forward to. And this moment, this Nine of Swords moment, is but a part of a greater cycle. This is when we can remember that in this second, we are safe and we have everything we need. And this is the problem right now, that a lot of folks are not safe. A lot of folks in this moment are living in fear. So as a responsible individual, as a Capricorn entity, as someone who has been dancing the dance with Pluto since 2008, that knows that energy very well, that can really feel the revolution coming, the dissemination, the disintegration of old systems in order to birth the new, powerful, beautiful, fresh, green undergrowth of the new system. I think at this time, at this lunation, it might be really great for you, Capricorn, to look out, to extend your gaze from inward to outward, and to see who might need a helping hand, who might need a talk, who might need some compassion at this time. For you in your chart, if you're a Capricorn rising, Gemini rules your 6th house, which is where we enact ritual. It's where we find peace and regulation in the rhythm of the day. It's where we really assess our health, our physical vessel, our body, and where we make sure that we're giving ourselves what we need, and that we are, what does my mum say? Tending to the vessel, the physical structure that encapsulates our soul. The 9th house is incredibly practical, incredibly Virgo, I might say as well. So think about your Virgo friends and think about their implicit skill of sticking to task and discovering the details and working things through. There's a great rhythmic feeling to the sixth house. It's got a very interesting past. I'm recognizing now in my learning and study, as we move forward, as consciousness and society develops, so does the language of astrology. And so perhaps in the ancient days, the sixth house did mean something else. I think the essence of what it has meant in the past and how we can incorporate that into our rhythm today has a lot to do with repetitious task, but with almost like a rhythmic meditation to survive some of the things that the sixth house has represented. Speaks to that. It speaks to rhythmic meditation to get by and get through. In the old days, the sixth house could represent servitude. So think about it in that way. I think some astrologers say it's to do with work and daily life, and that's true. That's absolutely true. I think that there's a little bit of magic in there as well, as far as what the body is capable of to get by, particularly through difficulty, particularly through a Mars in Gemini moment. So at this full moon, I want you to really embody your physicality and step into yourself and to ask and to work with the needs of the physical vessel. And then after you've done that internal work, after you've met your own needs, it might be a really wonderful thing to cast your gaze a little further. Maybe look at your mutable friends. By mutable friends, I mean your Pisces, your Virgos, your Sagittarians, and your Geminis. Because they're having a tough time at this lunation, I can almost guarantee it. If we think about the energy of Mars in your sixth and it having been there or will be there for 7 months, Mars entered Gemini on the 20th of August and won't leave until March of next year. That's an unusually long time to be dealing with this sort of compulsion to strive ahead and then move back, and quick to anger and then move back. The sort of the passion of Mars being present in the conversation of Gemini is an exhaustingly long period of time to cope with that. So what do you do? What systems have you found help regulate your emotions, help regulate your perhaps your access to anger? That makes any sense. I don't wish to... This was said to me really recently, and I think it's really, really valid and really important. Rage is a very healthy emotion. We're allowed to be angry when we bear witness to injustice and inequality, and when we are treated in a way that doesn't honour our values, when we can feel that we are being taken advantage of, or we witness others being taken advantage of. One emotional reaction is rage, and it's valid. But I think at this lunation, particularly because we know that a full moon already brings about heightened emotions, with this Mars conjunction, it's going to be hot, it's going to be angry. So how are we going to work in that environment, and what are we going to do? What action plan do we have to exist through this lunation and also exist through this period of history and make sure that our goal is set on something equitable that has the collective group, the world citizens, all of them in some form of regard, that holds their regard in place. It's very difficult times, and of course anxiety and of course things like depression are incredibly serious topics and incredibly important times in one's life to seek active help from a professional. And that I trust, Capricorn, you'll be very, I'm sure that you already have the tools in place or the appropriate folks lined up for you to speak to if that's something that you might be feeling, because obviously Pluto is still in your first house. Pluto is still existing there. But I really think, and it's interesting to see how these readings have been playing out, but I think that, yeah, as I look to the whole zodiac and I can see who might be really struggling and who might have a sense of grounding, Capricorn, I think that this time and what you're going through personally has meant that you have needed to find that rhythm, find that meditative rhythm to regulate. And perhaps at this full moon, I would definitely recommend for us all to really take it slow and to not actively engage in any kind of argument at this full moon, because it will boil over. But I think that if we can switch out the gaze and lend a little compassion to other folks that you can witness are struggling, that might be the best way to see this thing through. That's your reading, Capricorn. I didn't pull any intuitive tarot this time, but I don't think that we need it. What do you think? Thank you very much for liking and subscribing to my channel. I really, really appreciate it. I really feel so supported and comforted by your company. And do head over to umaruby.com if you'd like your birth chart read. There are multiple different avenues we can take, and there's still some time left in December to get those booked in. Best of luck to you, my dear sweet Capricorns, and thank you for holding space for me. Thank you for holding space for everybody, as you are often known to do. I'll be speaking to you in 2 weeks, and we're going to have a new moon in your sign in Capricorn. So this will be a lovely moment of activation. We have power at this one. When there's a new moon in our first house, this is really a lovely time to zoom in and to pray for ourselves. I think at this full moon in Gemini, it's going to be really great if you cast your eye out and see who might need a helping hand. That's it. I love you, Capricorn. You take care. Bye.